All right. So yes, thanks again for being here. I'm so excited to chat more about what you guys are doing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you do, how you started 343 Marriages, and just a little bit about you two.
Yeah. Do you want me to take that? Okay. Well, we joke we have a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks. So I was married 21 years and Pamela was married 18 plus. And we tried very hard to save our marriages. And unfortunately, our exes, couldn't change some behavioral things that, biblically kind of put us in a spot where it didn't make sense to be married. Is the sad part, and we know God hates divorce, and so through all that, going through the healing, and then kind of God connecting us years later, it was we realized we've been through so much and we've been given so much in that healing process that and we also realized there were so many things we did not know getting married and being married, and we don't think we're alone. That we think there's a lot of people driving without a driver's license, if you will.
Absolutely.
And so we prayed for years actually about how can we, use this, God, if there's a way we can help others open those doors. And so during COVID, we did some, training and some different programs to kind of prepare ourselves. And then 2 years later, we got a random call from someone saying, "Hey, we're looking to, use it was Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts." It's a book by the Parrots, and
Okay.
it's kind of a popular thing that helps couples understand how they connect together and what they look like as a couple across a number of different categories. So we kind of did that. Nothing happened. Then 2 years later, we get the call out of the blue saying, "Hey, we wanted to see if you would, go through that process with us." And it was a Florida area code. And I said, "Well, we don't live in Florida, but we could do a web meeting." And he's like, "Oh no, we actually live in San Diego." I said, "Oh, well, we live in San Diego." I'm like, "Well, we live in Carlsbad." I'm like, "Well, we live in Carlsbad." And the next thing we find out they live
Your neighbors.
a
Oh
mile.
my gosh.
They rode their bike over to our house,
Yeah.
for a session. So
Oh, I just love that.
that's
How things work out like that.
yeah.
That's how it launched, even though our hearts were ready and we felt God's calling. It just, when they say to be still, even in the times where you're a willing servant, God has something that he's working on. He was preparing our hearts, he was preparing everyone else's hearts, and we had some training to do, I guess. So it was really cool how it started, and then we were off and running. So
And then he adjusted the whole stock market to make it happen.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I just love how God works like that, how he brings glory to every even challenging and disappointing situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have to say that you two are such a beautiful couple, and that's amazing how just all the details worked out to start this. And it is so needed, right? I mean, I work for a matchmaking company, and we doubled in size during the pandemic because people's marriages were ending. They were isolated with the wrong person.
Right.
One reason or another, it just didn't work out. So
Yeah, you can't hide. COVID created an environment where you couldn't hide, or you could just distract yourself from things.
Take it away.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. And so tell me a little bit more about the 3 pillars that you focus on to help people with.
Well, the name 343, I think that's what you're referring to as far as the pillars go. We feel like it's that we try to align people with an emotional, spiritual, and a physical connection. And we're not necessarily talking about the physical connection of like what you look like. It's the connection that you have with your partner, that we do feel it's strong. It needs to be a strong chemistry, there needs to be spark. And then of course, spiritually, we want you to align spiritually. And we are Christians, we're non-denominational practicing, but being spiritually aligned is really such a root of how we feel that couples are grounded. It's what really gets you through the hard times when you are not truly relying on just each other and you have God in the mix. Gives you so much more grace. It gives you forgiveness, and it gives you all of the things that you really need that we don't have naturally as humans. So spiritually is well, it is the most important of the 3 for 3, I feel like. And then emotionally, we talk about, just communication styles and conflict resolution, family of origin, all of those things, which, significantly play into how a couple relates on your daily grind, like when you wake up and when you go to bed and all of those things. So we do the SYMBIS assessment with all couples that are going in for premarital or that are thinking that they're headed in that direction. And it really just brings up organically all of the subjects that we're talking about. So we're able to kind of pinpoint maybe some red flags or talk about things that don't naturally come up when you're in the hearts and rainbows phase.
Yeah.
Financial things and sex and things like that. If you've been waiting to have sex, you may not know even what to ask, but that also opens the door to start those conversations, talk about expectations and things like that, that are usually a little off limits, but are so critically important to a long-term lifetime marriage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I would add that this is a looking in the mirror thing as much as it is looking at a potential partner.
Yeah.
We need to bring and constantly be trying to be our best selves, our best healed self,
Yeah.
emotionally. We don't want to come in expecting someone to meet our needs or fill a void that really can't be met, shouldn't be met by another person. So there's these things that we help work with couples and single people to kind of make sure they're bringing a healthy version of themselves to the equation, so that when you do, everyone talks about this moment, am I missing an opportunity to meet that certain special person, my soulmate, whatever it is. We want to make sure you are your best self when you get there, because you can miss opportunities. You can self-sabotage or blow things up, something that could be amazing and incredible if we don't deal with those things. Because the reality of marriage is we're taking two imperfect people and we're trying to put them together for life.
Right.
So nothing will draw out and highlight areas in your life that you need to work on like marriage will.
Yeah.
That is where, as you said, the rainbow unicorn, when the emotions simmer down and you start to go, she kind of laughs funny, or I don't like how she squeezes the toothpaste in the middle. I'm a bottom up roller. All these little things start to come up the surface, and then we have to be prepared. We have to know, what does love really look like?
Yeah.
And that's where God can do his best work, actually, is in these two people. We can highlight, see, work, heal, grow together is what can happen, what should happen.
Yeah.
Good relationship.
Okay. All right. So what do you look for when you're helping couples to know whether people are truly ready and are their best selves to be in a relationship, a healthy relationship and marriage?
Yeah. Well, we kind of have an intake form we start with that kind of helps look at as Pamela mentioned, like your family of origin. Is there trauma in your life? And that, that can be extreme things like sexual or physical abuse or other things that really need to be, tackled head on. We can't ignore them and think that if we find the right person, we won't need to deal with that. It'll go away. It won't. It'll just pop up later, and it'll pop up probably at a bad time. So we look at that. We look at, we talk a lot about being the person who you are looking for is looking for. Right. So if I'm trying to find this person that, looks a certain way or has a certain attitude or a certain character, sense of humor, all these things, we also need to be self-evaluating and be working on the same things, so that we are not expecting something different than what we are. And so,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we try and look at what are the qualities that person is looking for. Are they really the most important qualities, or are they qualities that have bubbled up from past failures in a relationship? That happens a lot. Like, well, I was in a long relationship and then they did this. So my primary thing I'm looking for is that I don't want this, and it might not be the most important thing. It might just been that person wasn't healthy or you weren't healthy at the time. So we want to help them define what are the critical things, and less is more. You can get overly distracted or overly careful or paranoid by creating this list that basically no one can live up to.
Right.
And then you eliminate someone who could be amazing,
For sure.
And I mean, there's like a whole nother aspect to all that too, because sometimes when you are ready for a relationship, you have analysis paralysis. Like that's one of the things that John talks about a lot that I've loved. And, you know, you may be ready, but you don't know where to find the person, or like which, you know, outlet do you go to? Do you do online dating? Do you go to a matchmaker? There's so many different things that it becomes very overwhelming. So sometimes people may tend to retreat and just be like, okay, this is a little bit too much. So we work with people that are kind of in that phase also, just to analyze, okay, are they paralyzed right now because they're not ready, or because they're just not ready to take that next step. So that's all part of it as well.
And I love, you know, we love the idea of matchmaking. You know, we see that, we watch the Indian matchmaker show.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, there are.
But I mean, that idea of someone who's your guide in this process to help you, keep you honest, and help you, you know, think about some of the things like, is that really important? You know, do they really have to be 6'5"? You know, got certain color eyes, and like, is that really the most important thing? Because we can show you scientifically that there are people with the qualities you might think are important who are miserable. You know, so we know we know that the qualities actually don't directly translate into the quality of the relationship.
Absolutely. And the same thing too, a lot of people, chemistry is important, but a lot of people find that and look for that first versus compatibility and chemistry.
And that's why we feel like, you know, you need all three. You need all three of them. So emotional, spiritual, and that physical spark between the two of you.
Right. And you can find all three, right? You don't have to settle for missing one of those core pieces.
I mean, if you do settle, then you're really letting go of something that you could have had. It doesn't mean that the person that you're settling with is a bad person. It just means that there are chances that if you don't settle, you're going to meet the right person. And that it's very valuable. It's so fulfilling and happy when God, you know, when you allow God to take that control and bring the right person into your life.
We talk a lot about fishing in the right pond, you know, and I was talking to my daughter, I'm like, if you want to make guacamole and you don't have avocados, do you go to Sephora? You know, and no, we don't, right? But we do that a lot in the dating, where we're trying to find someone who has, you know, a work ethic and, you know, a moral character and all that. And then where we actually go look at, you know, it's midnight and you're at the bar going, where's my guy? Well, that guy's not at the bar at midnight. He's probably, you know, they can be. I've been at a bar at midnight, doesn't mean they can't be, but your odds go up much higher if you're looking for where people of that character hang out. What do they do in their free time? You know, do they volunteer? Are they at church? Are they doing, you know, working with young kids, you know, whatever it is, that's where those people are, because they have a bigger picture of what life's all about.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And then you're much more likely to find those shared values. There from the start too. Yes. And then, so you had mentioned something in our previous conversation too about why people want to be in a relationship. Can you talk a little bit about that? That was really interesting.
Do you want to take that? You want me to take that?
I'll add in. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I touched on it a little bit, and that is, we do need to be honest with ourselves. And sometimes that's harder to do by ourselves. Sometimes it helps to have someone to challenge us and help us think through what our motivation is. But it is very common. You see someone where there's kind of a sense of, I don't want to say desperation, but there's a sense of urgency to find this person. And to me, that's kind of a red flag. If there's this, you know, anxiety about the fact that you haven't found that person, that usually indicates we need to kind of recenter and regroup and say, what is my motivation? Because there's usually a hole or something that needs to be worked on to get you to the spot where it's lovely and wonderful and godly to desire something that is good. And, you know, God made marriage, so we know that it's good, but we don't do it out of fear. Is not the place we should be coming from, because when we do, then we're bringing this energy to a potential spouse that can be smothering or scary or paranoid, and it'll scare a healthy person off, because they're gonna go, wait. We're just trying to meet and see if we get along. Could we be best friends for life? Is there chemistry? Are these things? And I've been on dates in between my first marriage and meeting Pamella, where, we go on a date, we have a nice conversation, and we come out, and there was a look in her eyes that she wanted to rain right then, and the reaction to a guy is like, oh gosh, I got to get out of here. I got to get home, and I'm not going on another date with her, because there was too much desperation there. And it scares me to say, I think there's something unhealthy behind this, where I will never be able to actually fill that void and meet that need, even though she thinks I'm maybe the solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. A lot of pressure. And a lot of people, I mean, they are just feeling lonely, or they feel like, oh, there's couples all around them. So they just feel like that's what's missing from their life, and that's what's going to fulfill them. But then that's a hole, like you said, that someone else can never fill, right?
Yeah.
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 Although life is much more wonderful with someone. I mean, and being alone, definitely, I don't think God wants that. I mean, I think there are some people that are called to singleness, but I think that's a special calling. That's not common. And I want to make sure I'm careful when I say, the urgency and all that, because I know there are people, and we work with people where they're like, I'm 35, and I want to have kids, and I want to have a family. So there is like a literal timeline that creates a sense of urgency. And so I don't want to make anyone feel bad or shameful about having that extra, time sensitivity, but still, you can still have that and come at it from a healthy perspective.
Yeah. It does, like you said, not out of desperation, but because you're ready, you're ready to find your person. So I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think, if there's someone who's watching this going, I have that sometimes, I have that anxiety or angst, and I really want to meet someone, I want to tell you that there's hope. Like, this isn't something that is incredibly impossible to work on and fix. These are things that are it's a self-awareness issue, and someone can help you understand what's behind it, and you can work on it, you can grow, and you can heal. And this isn't something that, sidelines your ability to meet someone for years. This, in most cases, this is something that can be worked on, and you can make progress very quickly.
Okay. So would you recommend someone like get some support in doing that if they are feeling like it's time? Where's my person? I want to find them.
Yeah. I think you need someone in your life. Again, it depends on what's behind that. If it's severe trauma, abuse or things like that, we recommend working with a professional therapist. Someone can really help you. Licensed therapist. But if it's something else lighter than that, just some bad relationships and different things, I think we love doing that as marriage coaches. But someone who's in your life that is also someone who's very healthy and grounded can be also a great resource to help you, talk through that and process through that and get you to a better spot.
Right.
And there's always Google, right? Just Google.
Oh yeah. Google, YouTube.
Yeah. But there's so many great books out there. If there's something specifically you wrestle with, there's probably a good book on it. And
we have a lot on our website, actually. That's great.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll link to that too, so people can find your website and reach out to you too. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
That's lovely.
And then what would you say are the top 3, or the top issues that you see come up for people who are single or preparing for marriage or are married? What are the top 3 frustrations that come up?
Well, I mean, with singles, I think it's just the frustration of waiting, waiting to try to find the person. Or we hear a lot of our followers right now on our social platforms are single. They've been single because they're waiting for the right one, or they've had some traumatic past relationships, or they've been divorced and are single again, and they don't want to make the same mistakes again. So we really talk to a lot of people, and I think one of the things that makes us different than a lot of coaches out there is because we've also walked that walk. We chose the wrong partners from the beginning. Not that they weren't good people, but they were not our partners. The ones that were God's best for our lives. And I think because of that, we learned the hard way. We try to keep people from doing the same road that we took, in choosing with just our emotions instead of really looking at all of the all of the other issues with the spiritual and emotional alignment. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that people are dealing with, that are looking for someone right now, is, are you the one? Am I ready? Or, like, when are they coming? Like, that's a big question that we get asked. Like, okay, it's been a long time since my past relationship, I'm ready. So I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then if they are divorced, I think they're like, I don't know if I can handle this again, or I just don't want to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, that's a long one, because it's so circumstantial. There's single issues, there's people that are in relationship or married issues. I think in marriage, or in a relationship, that's kind of hoping to head in that direction. One very common challenge is just the ability to communicate and resolve conflict.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that comes from, do we communicate our needs, desires, frustrations? Can we do that with the person we love? And can we have successful resolution of that? So many relationships, my past included, I'm a peacemaker. I want harmony. I want everyone to be happy and feel good, and a people pleaser. So I would, after failed attempts at trying to do this in my marriage, I would just not going to deal with it, because I don't feel like I'm going to get a successful resolution, and it's going to stress the kids out, and there's nothing to be gained by me going into this. But that doesn't work over time. It just builds up resentment. You're putting it on, you're just shoving white processed bread under a rug, and you're just going to get mold and rot. And so we have to learn how to communicate and successfully communicate our frustrations or difficulties in love. And one critical component, and this is where a lot of couples break down, is marriage is designed not to be, I'm loving for what I'm going to get in return. This is very much what our culture tells us, is like, well, you got to do what's best for you. The most common advice you get when you're expressing frustration to a friend is, you deserve better.
Or happiness. Yeah.
And that's really not true. If you're married, you're to become one. We deserve the best. So I can't win an argument. I can't tear you down and then be better off because of it. I'm tearing myself down. And so we have to love. This is where submission and sacrifice and unconditional love, that's what marriage, that's the only way it works, is if we're loving our spouse on the bad days, because love never fails. Like, we have to love through. And so we teach couples, you love God through your spouse. So it's not conditional, it's unconditional love. You're having a bad day, you're frustrated, maybe I'm frustrating you, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to lift you up, and I'm going to encourage you. And over time, you're going to have no choice but to love me back, because that's what happens. When you're acting in an unlovable or unkind or mean way, and someone still loves you, it might piss you off more in the beginning, but in the end, if you're consistent, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I was so horrible, and they're still being kind and loving me. Oh my gosh, I have such a gem and a jewel here. I have to lean back into that and reciprocate.
Absolutely. Yeah, so beautifully said.
Thank you.
So keeping score out of the equation, and just being all about, how can I support, how can I love, how can I give, and automatically that's going to come back to you.
Yeah, it just takes consistency, and that's the hard part. So it takes a supernatural source to be able to be that person that's loving when someone's mean for an extended period of time. And that's by God's design, because God wants community and connection with us. So the fact that things get bad is God's built-in mechanism for us to have to go to him. And kind of recenter and go, okay, I don't really want what's fair in my life, because if I did, I wouldn't have God's grace. I'm living by grace. I have to pass that on in my marriage in particular. And that's it's just incredibly powerful. And there's such grace. I mean, we've been married 5 years now. We've been together on 8. We reconnected 8 years ago. And we still go to bed and pinch ourselves. Like, is this real? Like, are we so happy together? Are we, we die laughing about the dumbest things. And we don't have anything that's not available to the general public. We haven't unlocked some super secret. This is available to everybody.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And how did you two meet?
We met when we were actually in college. We were 17
Oh,
freshmen
wow.
at Pamella Nazarene University in San Diego. And we're never dated or anything, but we met our freshman year. And actually the very first day, which is super funny, first day of our freshman year in college. And then, you know, I moved to Texas and he stayed in San Diego and we never kept in contact. And then as they were getting the reunions together for like, you know, your college reunion, everybody started linking on Facebook and things like that. So we became friends, you know, just social friends. And then after we went through our divorces, which when I saw that he had changed his status to it's complicated, and I was already like going through my own turmoil, I'm like, I became the Facebook stalker to see what was going on with John Martin. But anyway, yeah, how many years was it? 30 years later?
Yeah.
30 years
Wow.
later.
88.
Yeah,
and
88.
15, 16, we like talked again for the first
Yeah.
time.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
We had, needless to say, a lot of college friends that were so happy for us just because they had lived those days with us and thought it was so
Really?
great that we were reunited. So it's
Oh,
a long history, super fun story. But
yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of how it all started.
Okay. So go to your reunions.
I know. Keep
People
up
you've
with
met
your
in the past.
reunions. That's right.
And that reminds me of something, Ashley, I want to bring up because this comes up a lot, you know, for the single people who are waiting and they feel frustrated and they've been on, you know, 100 bad dates and they don't believe that there's a good person out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is quality people are rare.
Yeah.
So that's like discouraging, but it's also heartening. It means you don't give up the search. It means you don't stop going on dates because you've had 10 bad dates.
Yeah.
Because it could be the 11th, it might be the 20th, it might be the 100th.
Yeah.
Don't stop the search for something rare, beautiful, and valuable. You know, the Bible talks about the guy who finds a rare gem in a field and he sells everything he has to go buy the field. You know, there's this implicit idea that, you know, someone who's beautiful and who's available is a rare thing because quality people have lots of options and there are a lot of people who want to, you know, be connected, marry, whatever. So it is true that it's rare, and it's not any different than friendships, right? How hard is it to find a good friend who's going to be there by your side, who's not going to judge you, but who's going to share and be open and connect and be reliable? You know, those are also hard to find.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
kids, if you can have 2 or 3 quality, amazing friends in your life, you will live a rich, fulfilling life. You just need a couple.
Totally. Well, and then that goes back to quality people and also someone with a shared faith and those shared values too. That is rare, but also it's worth it to wait for the right one, and they are out there. It's just a matter of yeah.
Just got to connect with Ashley. She's going to find it for you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, amazing. And then one other question I just wanted to ask, because we were talking about communication. What are your tips or any tips that you might have for people when emotions are heightened or you're frustrated, but you don't want to hold it in and sweep it under the rug? How do you communicate?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few important things about communication. One is we don't want to do it in a heightened state in general. You know, so you have something you want to talk about. We don't want to do it when you're tired, hungry, frustrated, angry. You know, there's general things that like that's not the ideal environment to have a successful, you know, conflict or, you know, conflict related conversation.
Right.
The second part, and this is like kind of counterintuitive, but the truth is around conflict is a key to intimacy.
Wow.
Yeah, we think it's the opposite, but it's not.
Yeah.
So if you think about like people in the military, they go through really difficult training together. They're being challenged and they're put in very, you know, physically, emotionally intensive situations. And when they come out of that, they are very tight and connected because they've been through tough times together.
Oh, totally.
And so with conflict, the problem that we kind of create the problem because we want to avoid small conflicts because we be like, it's not our internal dialogue is like,
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I don't need to bring this up. I'm just going to table this. It doesn't hit the threshold of something that's important enough to go through the stress and trauma of having this conversation. So then when something medium or big comes up and we try and do it, we're overwhelmed, we fail, it's harder to resolve a big conflict than a small one, right? That's
Yes.
very logical. So we want to practice with the small ones.
Okay.
So if we practice with the small ones and we make sure that we frame it up in the right context. So the right context is I can speak and everyone says, well, I can say it, it's the truth, right? Truth can be weaponized. I can use truth in very mean ways. And so whenever we're speaking, we need to ensure that our truth is coupled with grace and love. So what that might look like, in a situation is, Pamela, I love you. You look beautiful today. And I want to talk to you about something because I want to work on our relationship and I want to feel close and intimate with you. And so one thing I've learned from 3 for 3 marriages is that conflict's important to our intimacy. So I want to practice this thing on you. So when you come in the house and you hang your jacket or you throw your jacket on the ground, it kind of bums me out or makes me feel like you don't care because you know that keeping the house clean is important to me. And so what can we do about that? Does it help? I just want to practice this with you. And then you talk about it.
Okay.
You make sure that, again, no one's like, she's like, I have to leave in 5 minutes. I have to do 10 things. You want to do it at the right time, but you want to practice that. Now, when she responds and we work through it and we finish and we resolve it and we feel good about the resolution. Well, now we've had a successful conflict. We feel connected because we were able to take something that was potentially damaging to our relationship and turn it into something that brought us closer.
Yeah. The skill from the other person is when one does bring it up, then you also practice receiving that information. It's a very critical part of it because he could offer that out as a bid for me to respond and change behavior. But if I get defensive or reactive or want to pout or whatever it is, then that's really not going to help the situation at all. But
Right.
practicing those skills of him feeling free and secure and safe enough to bring it up, and then me feeling free and safe and secure to respond in a healthy way, then we've just achieved something. And then the next time it gets easier and easier and safer and safer and safer. And it just builds that intimacy that he's talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great point Pamela brings up, is that by starting with the smaller things, it's easier not to be defensive. That's harder sometimes if it's something really big and it's
Oh
really
yeah.
eating at you. But if she could go, well, you always just kick your shoes off, right?
Yeah.
But it's easier on a small thing to just like, okay, I got to bite my tongue. I'm not supposed to be defensive. I'm going to listen. I want to lean in. I want to unpack why you feel that way. What upsets you about that? And you want to hear it all, because the truth is we don't really hear from someone else unless we feel heard. So we want to lean in and try and, without thinking about our position on it, right? Is this fair? Any of those things, we want to table all that and just lean in like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? How do you feel exactly? Tell me. When I throw my jacket on the ground, does it make you angry? Does it make you frustrated? Does it make you upset? Tell me about that. And that feels so good when you're frustrated, and instead of someone, harping back at you about something you did wrong, they want to learn more about what's going on in your heart and mind. It all of the tension just blows out, and then you're like, you know what? It's actually not that big a deal anymore. The fact that you just listen to me,
Right.
That's half the
kindness
battle.
and love, I just feel amazing.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna start throwing my jacket on the ground. That's the solution. We don't even need
We're just gonna have jackets on the ground, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it seems so simple, but yeah, I mean, we're emotional, so it's not easy. It's more simple, but it's not easy. So it's so helpful. And I think if people would implement those things, like marriages would change so much.
Yeah.
And you said
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you said something, and I want to reminds me, is like that this is foreign, this is new, it's weird. Like if you haven't done it, when you go to do it, it's going to feel weird, mechanical and awkward. That's okay.
Yeah.
Because anything, like learning anything new, riding the bike for the first time, you're wobbling, you look like you're going to fall over, and you maybe do fall over. But if we don't go through that process, we never are able to ride our bike, and we're ever
Right.
able to ride our bike while talking on the phone and eating a burrito, right? So that
Yeah.
we have to show ourselves grace as we try and do new things in a relationship. It's not a failure if you try it and you do it and it's bumpy. It's only a failure if you don't try it.
Yeah. Well, and I love how you said too, let's practice this. So like bringing attention to, this is going to be a little awkward. This is new, but let's practice it. Like we're fighting for our marriage here. Right. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly that.
And that's the heart of what we're all about, is you should not just survive marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You have, like, you can have a rich, thriving, joy-filled, fun marriage that lasts, that goes the distance.
Yeah.
And in doing so, because when you get married, you're going to have a legacy.
Mm.
Every marriage has a legacy. And it's a
Yeah.
question, is that legacy going to be something that is amazing, that your kids and your grandkids and their kids and, you know, generations talks about? Grandma and grandpa, great grandma and grandpa, they were married 50, they loved each other, they were laughing until they were laughing right into the coffin, you know, they just were so joy filled. We want that in our lives. Or you don't, you have our first marriage, right? Our kids, your kids go through hell, the people around you struggle, your friendships get blown up. We want people to avoid divorce. We know God hates divorce, and we know God hates sin, but he loves people. He hates those things because of the pain and trauma it causes them and everyone.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. Could you just share, do you have a free offer, and where and how can people find and connect with you?
Yeah. Pamela?
Well, we usually can be found on social media, of course. We're Instagram, 3for3 Marriages, and our website is also 3for3marriages.com.
Okay.
And we're on TikTok as well, same thing. But what we wanted to offer anybody who's listening or watching is a free 15-minute session with us. Oh, you can't see it.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
A free 15-minute session to, if they want to check it out, whether they want to do single sessions, whether they're looking for a spouse or trying to get themselves ready or whatever it is, if they're premarital or going through some kind of marriage issue that they want to talk about, or they just want to figure out how to be thriving, you can reach out to us. We can do a free 15-minute session with you, and then we have sessions that will fulfill whatever you're looking for from there.
Okay, so singles too, singles and preparing for marriage and marriage. Married. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Any last words you want to share?
No, we're just so grateful that you took the time to talk to us, and we're excited to, to work with you and anybody else. It's such a wonderful thing having a lifelong committed person, and it's something very, very worth your time and money and effort to be spent in it. Just like any other coaching situation, that's really what we're doing, is to just be with you and support you through the process.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you for what you do to help people
Yes.
find each other, because
Yeah.
I think the world's a better place with people like you helping.
For sure. Yes. All right. Well, thank you both so much again, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, thank you
you,
so
Ashley.
much. Bye,
Thanks.
Ashley.
Bye.